Well, that's a heavy title, I know, and it was heavy experiencing it. But in this video, I want to share the 3 life lessons I learned from my father's sudden and tragic death, and these lessons, I believe, can help us all as we navigate through life. Welcome to Get It Together, and if you're new here, this channel is just me trying to figure out how to get my life together and sharing the tips and lessons I learned along the way. Before kicking off, there are indeed timestamps in the description below, so feel free to hop around as you see fit, especially because I'll be sharing some contextual and experiential details you might not really care about or bring you back to an unpleasant state if you too have been affected by the murder of a loved one in your life. I've been humming and hawing of whether or not to make this video at all because I don't like pity parties in general, and I assure you this isn't the goal here. The catalyst for me deciding to make this video is that someone made a comment on one of my other videos where I mentioned my mother a few times, and I guess they thought that, like their dad, my father hadn't been present in my life since I didn't mention my father at all in that video. Their comment was very kind and sweet to my mother, and theirs as well, and rightfully so, but then proceeded to speak negatively about their own father. Anyways, I finally decided to create this video to, I suppose, I don't know, like set the record straight, in case anyone ever accidentally assumed something undeservingly negative about my dad. So I guess some might be curious about his passing, and if you don't care and you just want to get to the life lessons I learned, you can skip the next kind of 20 seconds. But the bullet point version is this. My dad was riding his motorcycle. Someone driving a company's pickup truck hit him when they changed lanes without looking. They stopped and begged my dad to settle out of insurance because it was a company truck and they literally just started the job and thought they'd get fired. My dad went to his motorcycle mechanic to get a quotation for the repairs. He called the guy and arranged to meet early the next morning before work to settle on the motorcycle repair bill. The guy shows up and for unconfirmed reasons ends up stabbing my dad repeatedly, steals his phone so he couldn't call 911, and takes off. But this video is not about that. It's about the valuable life lessons that revealed themselves to me in the aftermath, in the weeks, months, years after his killing. Beginning with, number 1, external care from others isn't lasting, nor should it be. Once news broke, the reach outs from everyone, even complete strangers, contacting us with care, well wishes, and outrage was so swift, so voluminous, so deep, and so gratitude-inducing. And then the drop-off of expressed care and publicized outrage and love vanished just as swiftly, and it felt, I don't know if hurtful is the right word, but I'll say it was a constant psychological or emotional equivalent of like a bee sting on the back where you can't reach to pull it out. And I'm not trying to downplay it. It was like, yo, where'd you all go? I can't see you, but I know you're there, but I can't even reach you to get the relief I think I need from you. So what did this manifest into in real life? Short story, friendships were lost, people vanished, and of course the closer the friendship was, the more it weighed on me. Now, years later, with newly sobered eyes, my general assessment looks like this. Were these friends inherently bad people? No. Were they even bad friends? No. Did these folks fail to live up to my subjective expectations? Yes, and that's exactly the point. It's subjective. For starters, our own unexpressed desires and expectations aren't just magically going to flow into the consciousness of other people, but beyond that, this is murder. The stuff of movies and TV shows, the stuff you always expect to happen to someone else, but here's the thing. We are all someone else to someone else. And anything that falls into this realm of perceived near impossibility, like murder, we just aren't armed with the experience to even know what to do or what to say. At this point, that's neither here nor there. I mean, to me, what I've learned the most is what I titled this section, that external care doesn't last, and nor should it. Why should the world and even my friends drop everything to care for some undetermined length of time? My father's life ended. Why should everyone else's life priorities end to cater to me? The answer? They shouldn't. If everyone had extended care about every tragedy in their sphere, nothing would get done. Society itself would grind to a halt. And so, if I had to summarize a main takeaway, it would be this. When tragedy strikes, remember that your tragedy is yours. A wave of support will suddenly come through, but like a real wave, it'll retreat just as suddenly. So embrace it when it comes, but expect its retreat. The fact that you're still standing when it does retreat means that it did its job. That wave did its job, because I can say from first-hand experience that the innumerable well wishes, messages of support, texts of disbelief, and snacks dropped off at the front door are the wave that splashes you, that pushes you up from falling down when you definitely need it the most. And that's the job of that big wave. Look, you will feel something negative about the sudden retreat of that wave. And of course, you'll feel something negative about lost friendships, whether it's anger, sadness, or resentment, but time does heal. And the first step is doubling down on the friends who managed to stick around despite the tragedy, and tripling down on the family that feels the loss as much as you do. Time heals those negative feelings. The second most valuable lesson I learned in the years following Dad's killing is, well, it shouldn't take a tragedy to gain clarity of what matters, but the core lesson is that your life will be orders of magnitude better when you gain clarity of what actually matters. You don't have to experience the murder of a loved one to be able to imagine that it's a calendar clear. Yeah. I mean, literally, everything that you had scheduled in your calendar just vanishes. I was working in marketing at the time. I had deadlines and deliverables I was really stressing about just the night before it happened. You can imagine that literally 0 of my deadlines were met, and when I got back to work a few weeks later, the company was still doing well. I joined the next meeting and continued subsequent projects. Why was I stressing so hard about those deliverables? I was supposed to play in a fun amateur 9-ball pool tournament and was stressing because I got a new jump cue and I wasn't used to it yet. I obviously didn't make it to that tournament. Here are a few other random smatterings I distinctly remember allowing myself to dedicate valuable mental energy to caring about the night before my dad was killed. Idiot! Why the hell would you bet Dallas would cover that spread against the Giants? The hell is wrong with you? Here's another. Shit, did Vanessa say her sister wanted the blue one or the silver one for her birthday? I gotta order this thing now if it's gonna get here on time, but I definitely wasn't paying attention when she told me. We're gonna get in a fight now. Look, I can go on and on, but you can see how literally every single thing I was stressing and really caring about is objectively so unimportant when it comes to real, actual life, right? The actual legitimate stress I was putting on these things feels criminal now because of realizing just how little most things we fuss about really matter. I don't want you to go through the murder of a loved one, period. But what would sadden me even more is if you go through life with all of your loved ones around while dedicating your precious finite time and resources stressing over BS to not even be present enough to enjoy your loved ones. Don't wait for calendar clears to happen to realize how much you can declutter your mental stress shelf today. It might seem easier said than done, I get it. The constant stream of what ifs comes flooding in whenever there's stress. What if they judge me? What if I don't land this promotion? What if this makes, Thanksgiving dinner awkward? What if I disappoint them? What if she says no? What if he says no? If you want the shortest path to getting clarity of what matters, start with yourself and your own desired results in life. And if you really want to give it a real go, I'll link this video right over here that I believe will really help. And this sort of transitions us into the third most valuable lesson I learned, which is the importance of building optimal self-awareness and learning to communicate it. The murder of someone you love sort of makes you see what you're made of. You have to carry yourself and your loved ones, and they have to do the same. But just like those airline safety videos, you gotta put your oxygen mask on before helping others. In order to see what you're made of for yourself, you need to build the self-awareness to even have the barometer to gauge. Self-awareness in deep grief and uncertainty means finally being nakedly honest and vulnerable with yourself and asking yourself what you want and need. And what I wanted, of course, was to be in a room with my dad's killer with a hammer for his joints, a pair of needle nose pliers for his teeth and nails, a power drill and a 3/8 drill bit for everything else, and some silicone sealant and a caulking gun to close up the wounds so I could wash, rinse, repeat. And I tell you all of this, by the way, because it's disturbing. And you may have been thinking up to this point in this video, wow, Maurice seems like a really even-keeled dude. I wouldn't have been able to be so calm if my loved one was murdered. And this is just a reality check that I'm not fucking levitating above anyone. I'm just so many years removed now. The murderous thoughts I had consistently for a very long time were real. But where were we? Right. The vulnerability to build the self-awareness of what you want and need. And what else did I want? I irrationally wanted everyone in my orbit to be there for me, without even quantifying or qualifying what there for me even entailed. Digging into this degree of vulnerability wasn't easy for me, as I imagine it wouldn't be for most, and to totally stereotype, especially men. But once you allow yourself to do so, it's infinitely easier to recover if you're crystal clear about processing your rage and sadness, and then being equally crystal clear about what you need and want so you can communicate it to the people who are in your sphere. I mean, if I'm going to be honest, there I was, as described earlier in this video, losing good friendships from good people who didn't know what to say or do, feeling resentment when I couldn't even communicate to them what I wished they'd say or do. My grief was obviously justified, but blaming people for not being there while expecting them to magically know how to be there when faced with a situation no one is prepared for is most certainly not justified. I'd imagine there's at least 3 or 4 friendships that could have been salvaged if I had the clarity of mind I have now to communicate effectively. I mean, I believe that people who have any degree of care for you are actually weary of doing the least. I think they're yearning to measure the full distance of their potential, but they need to be asked. The real lesson here is that this extends so far past and in front of grief and into all interpersonal relationships and communications, from significant others, to friends, to family, to work, to the store employee. In no uncertain terms, for any interaction to be fruitful, everyone involved needs to at least know exactly what they want and, just as importantly, have the ability to clearly communicate it. Otherwise, what the hell are we even talking for? To just blindly guess and hope for the best? Life's too short for hope. Strive to be self-aware and build the strength and be vulnerable enough to communicate that self-awareness. You put these 3 core lessons I walked away with, press them into service, and I promise you, you'll become more effective and happy in your own life because you'll be infinitely better equipped to take the feeling of external abandonment so much less personally. And then you'll be liberated by how little you stress about every day actually matters, and simultaneously be more empowered and confident in pursuing the things that really matter. And finally, you'll have the self-awareness and the ability to communicate it the most effective ways to navigate everyday life, from casual interactions to stressful and high-stakes situations. There's a bonus lesson I learned, by the way. See, there's something we hear in movies and shows that deal with loss that has become kind of a part of an expected lexicon of grief as society, and it's this following sentence: "Not a day goes by that I don't think about them." This rang true for me, I'd say, for about 2 years. But then one day out of the blue, I realized it's been at least a few days I haven't thought of Dad and his death. And I gotta level with you, that was the strongest indicator to me that I could truly say to myself in the mirror, and mean it, that I was officially healing. Because if there's anything I know about my dad, he did not want to be a burden on anyone. And he'd be genuinely upset if not a day went by that I didn't think about him and his death. I, of course, hope none of your loved ones gets murdered. And I am by no means saying that anyone else who experiences a tragic death of a loved one would experience these same lessons as me. But I do know that these are the lessons I walked away with. And they feel like a final set of lessons my dad gifted me to help me continue navigating this weird experience we call life. You've been wondering, by the way, if some semblance of justice ever came. The guy was caught. In Canada, it's an automatic life sentence, and he has a chance of parole 18 years after initial sentencing. But even if he's granted parole, he'll be immediately deported to the Caribbean because he is not a Canadian citizen. Do I call that justice? No. Do I call that closure? I don't even know what closure even really means, but it's something. By the way, if you connected with this video, I think you'll connect with this one right over here. And if you're catching value, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to catch future videos I make exploring life, along with the lessons I learn and would love to share with you. Regardless, as usual, thanks so much for kicking it with me, and I'll see you guys in the next one.